Good evening. I'm just a little slow. Hope everybody's doing alright. I got a little update as far as a video I got done today. I'll get to that in just a moment. First off, there's definitely a mention that I have to make. Earlier, somebody, I don't know if he's here tonight, but he goes by Leo. He's a Facebook friend as well, and he started sending me some links to this band, and they do a lot of covers, and there's 5 people, and they're brothers and sisters. So I think that's pretty cool. There's 3 boys, 2 girls. One of the girls is a drummer. The other girl is the lead singer, but she also plays other instruments. And just absolutely mind-blowingly good music. And the name of that band, I want to make sure that I get it right. Here it is. Lilac. It's not, I keep thinking it's like lilac, but no, there's another I. It's Lilac. It's L-I-L-I-A-C. Lima, India, Alpha, Charlie. And I'm telling you, wow. Just be prepared. Check them out. Don't deprive yourself of that. I mean, he sent me links to a couple of songs, and I listened to them, and the next thing I know, I found myself probably the next 2 or 3 hours just picking different songs that they did, and they are incredible. And if you love music, man, check that out. There was one that they did that it just, Master of Puppets, I think it was. Master of Puppets. And they played it so well, I'm not going to lie, it choked me up. They played it so well. I mean, it was just so spot on. It was incredible. But anyway, I mentioned that I got a video done today, and it's processing right now in the back end of the YouTube. Oh, it's actually done, but don't tell nobody. I'm not going to release it until I am done with the show here. So, tough titty, said the kitty. If I can find my buttons, my phone, my butt. That is the video I shot today. So, as soon as the show is over, I will make that go poof on the YouTube, and you guys will get to see how I prepared Augustin Farm potato shreds and black bean burger mix. So, I made a video of preparing it and a review of tasting it. So, that will come right after the show. I'll make that visible. Let's see. I think that's about as much as the updates that I have as far as we're concerned and all of that. I've got not a whole lot of tabs open today. 6 tabs open today. Couple of them to do with economy and the other to do with, military type stuff. Man, I will reiterate what I said earlier in that video I made. Just make sure you're checking everything, making sure everything's good to go. Because, there comes a point when the language that's being used, when the things that are being said reaches a level that we would be absolutely foolish not to act on. And with what's being said, the claims that are being made by Russia, or at least some of the Russian people, some of the military, I think he was a commander, we might want to pay attention to that. So just make sure you got everything good to go. That's, to me, hugely important. I couldn't tell you how important. So anyway, I don't know of anything else really that I have on the top of my head to talk about, so I figured we'd just roll right into the news that I've got open here and do some headlines and probably make it an easy early night. I'm good with that. I'm enjoying my coffee, though. All right. Guess you guys might want to go along for the ride. Millions of Brits face falling living standards, says a study. And I keep hearing George W. Bush echoing in my mind. That's the dad, right? I think Senior was, or are they both W? I don't know. I'm talking about Senior. Senior. You know, the one that wouldn't be prudent at this juncture? That dude. Well, he had been quoted as saying on many separate occasions and in many different words that we have to better compete in the global economy. And I know that Reagan said that some of the most horrifying words, and I'm verbatim here, paraphrasing, whatever, some of the most horrifying words you could hear is, I'm from the government, I'm here to help. Something to that effect. Well, ranking right up there with that would be we have to better compete with the global economy, and here's why. Global economy, that means everyone that's trading. So you've got the United States of America that at one time was, a fair amount of the jobs were union, fair amount were non-union. There was a pretty good balance. They kept each other in check. That's the whole key. You have to keep things in balance. And that got way out of whack starting in the 80s when companies started to sell out their own people and outsource. Well, between the whole NAFTA thing and all of that, the American people wound up getting completely screwed. It wasn't just NAFTA. There were other deals made. All this free trade. But the problem with this free trade is, again, the American people were getting screwed. Well, when you've got people in China, India, Taiwan, wherever, that are working for much cheaper wages, much less benefits, the only way you can better compete with that is to lower your standard of living. Lower your standard of living. That's the only way you can truly better compete in a global economy. You have to compete with the lowest bidder. Plain and simple. So unfortunately, this is where everyone is right now, except for certain countries that got sweetheart deals that are continuing just to massively profit. Scary. Let me read the article because I hadn't even got into that yet. Can I digress? Probably not. Probably too much for digression. Digression, is that a word? If not, Webster's. The UK is on the cusp of the greatest cost of living crisis in modern times, with the number of those below the poverty line rising, according to a report by the New Economics Foundation. In a study released on Monday, the think tank said that 30 million people in Britain will be unable to afford what the public considers to be a decent standard of living by the time the current parliament ends in 2024. Rising prices below inflation, increases in earnings, and projected increases in unemployment will result in 43% of households lacking the resources to put enough food on the table or buy new clothes, the report said. According to the NEF's calculations, by 2024, almost 90% of single parents and 50% of workers with children will fall below the minimum income standard. On average, those falling below the threshold for a decent standard of living will be short by £10,000 or roughly $12,422 a year, the research shows. A decade of cuts, freezes, caps, and haphazard migration between systems left the UK with one of the weakest safety nets both among developed countries globally as well as in the UK's history. NEF economist Sam Timms wrote, millions of families were already living in an avoidable deprivation and hardship, but the day-to-day experience of low-income families is set to become even more desperate. Official figures show that 22% of Britons are currently living below the poverty line because they are getting by on less than 60% of the median household income. I'm telling you, I think globally it is going to get very, very ugly. And I don't think it's by chance. I think the world banks are doing it in conglomeration with corporations and, of course, governments. Because, they have to make us own nothing and be happy. So we can better compete in the global economy. We've seen headlines similar to this as well as many other countries. Inflation in Finland hits 40-year high. Annual inflation in Finland accelerated to 9.1% in November, according to official data released on Wednesday. The figure represents the highest level of price growth since a 9.2% reading registered in 1983, the country's statistics agency said in its report. Consumer prices in the country rose by 1.2% from the previous month, which according to the agency was mostly due to higher power prices and an increase in the average mortgage rate. Electricity costs surged 18% month on month and were up 66% from last year. Meanwhile, the average interest rate on mortgages rose by a staggering 96%, practically doubling from 2021. The rise in the price of diesel and higher interest rates on consumer loans also contributed to the inflation. Food and non-alcoholic beverages rose by about 16% in price on average compared to last November. Oh my goodness. Jukka Apakowitz, I have no idea, the chief economist of Finland's Central Chamber of Commerce, said the published figures are worrying. Drastic readings in Finland, inflation did not decline in November as it did on average in the euro area, but accelerated to 9.1%. There was a rapid increase in prices of 1.2%, which was driven by the rising costs of electricity and interest rates. Neither factor is slowing down quickly, that person, I can't say their name, wrote on Twitter. Physically, I don't think my tongue can even move like that to say that. Earlier this month, Statistics Finland reported that the country's GDP shrank 0.3% in the third quarter, ending 5 consecutive quarters of growth. Economists expect the contraction to continue in the fourth quarter, which would technically mean a recession for the Finnish economy. Analysts anticipate the downturn lasting well into 2023. And I'm going to say, and beyond. Because like I said, I think we're right just on the beginning of this slide. Let's see. Shift gears here. More of this nonsense. U.S. missiles in Ukraine will be targeted if delivered, says Kremlin. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said on Wednesday that Russia would certainly target U.S. MIM-104 Patriot missile systems in Ukraine if the weapons are deployed in the ongoing conflict. Media reports in the U.S. have indicated that plans to deliver the air defense system are in the final stages. Peskov's remarks came in response to a question about how Russia would react to the possible delivery of the U.S.-made systems, which Kiev currently does not have. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, who is now deputy chair of the National Security Council, stated in late November that such weapons and their crews would be legitimate targets if a NATO member were to deliver them. When asked whether the Kremlin supported Medvedev's stance, Peskov confirmed that was the case, but advised against rushing to conclusions. In our times, media reports are not reliable. Let us wait for official information, he explained. Medvedev's remark came after NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg had praised Germany's decision to deploy its Patriot missiles to Poland. He hailed Berlin's support of Kiev and remarked that decisions on specific capabilities being sent to Ukraine were up to national governments. Some observers, including Medvedev, took this as a hint of an upcoming deployment of the weapons. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. I need a drink. CNN claimed this week that the Pentagon is finalizing a proposal to arm Ukraine with Patriot missiles. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has to give the plan the go-ahead before it would be sent to the president for approval, the network said. Sources cited by other major news outlets confirmed the reporting. If delivered, each missile battery would require dozens of well-trained air defenders to operate, retired U.S. Army General Mark Hertling remarked on Twitter. Preparing crews would require months, so unless there's been a secret training going on for months, approval doesn't mean those systems will be on the battlefield immediately. So we'll see. I've noticed they have a trend of any time that they say they're going to do something or send something, it's done. Boom, they're on it. So, if we need help, well, we can't afford to help the American people. We're too busy fighting wars. For countries that are even worse than the country that's invading them. That's mind-blowing. Let's see. This is something that's been warned about. U.S. struggling to track Ukraine aid, says Politico. The administration of U.S. President Joe Biden is turning to the blockchain and other tech-based solutions amid mounting calls for oversight of the over $50 billion in aid pledged to Ukraine this year, according to State Department cables seen by Politico on Wednesday. Them cables, isn't that the whole reason Julian Assange is locked up? Because of a bunch of, inter-department cables? Huh. Imagine that. Reportedly signed by the U.S. ambassador to Kiev, Bridget Brink, on September 6th, the 9-page sensitive but unclassified document laments that kinetic activity and active combat between Ukraine and Russian forces creates an environment in which standard verification measures are sometimes impracticable or impossible. Kind of a mouthful. The State Department declined to comment on the document's contents, merely stating that it takes very seriously our responsibility to ensure appropriate oversight of all U.S. assistance. Washington's options for imposing order on uncontrollable spending in Ukraine reportedly include a commercial smartphone app, oh that's nice, that uploads all photo and video media onto a blockchain at the point of capture. Nice. Delegating equipment inspections to the Ukrainian military in the absence of Western contractors willing to work in high-risk areas, and requiring photographic proof that aid has been received, especially in hard-to-reach areas. The use of management consultants to review and identify gaps in oversight was also recommended. I've got one. I've got an oversight. It's kind of a dinky, small little thing, though. If you're using a phone app to send the data back and forth, you're literally telling Russia what and where you have it. Frickin' morons. Well, speaking of moronic things, U.S. Space Force. I need that button, man. Activates first overseas command. Well, I mean, come on. Let's give him a round of applause. Come on. This is the first mission. Space Force, man. I mean, she's not thrilled. Damn. Anyway, the newest U.S. military branch, Space Force. That was a little better. Has established its first command on foreign soil, setting up South Korea amid increasing tensions with China, Russia, and North Korea. The new unit was formally launched in an activation ceremony on Wednesday at Osan Air Force Base, or Air Base, it says, about 65 kilometers or 40 miles south of Seoul. It will help coordinate space operations on the divided peninsula, such as detecting missile launches by North Korea and overseeing satellite communications. The deployment enhances our ability to defend the homeland and ensure peace and security on the Korean peninsula and in Northeast Asia. U.S. Army General Paul Lacamera, commander of 28,500 U.S. troops stationed in South Korea, said at the ceremony. Asked how U.S. adversaries should interpret the move, the new unit's commander, Lieutenant Colonel Joshua McCullion, said he hoped it would deter conflicts. The hope is that they see we are ready, myself and my guardians are ready to go, day or night. That's the message we want the adversary, whoever the adversary is, to take. Gee, I don't know who that could be. The U.S. Space Force was formed in 2019 and opened its Indo-Pacific Regional Command Center in Hawaii last month. The Korea Command is a subcomponent of U.S. Space Force Indo-Pacific. America's military has about 750 bases in 80 countries around the world and has drawn criticism for also weaponizing space. The Pentagon has countered that the U.S. must treat space as a war-fighting domain because of threats from Russia and China. The Outer Space Treaty of 1967, which was signed by the U.S., the Soviet Union, and UK, pledged to set aside space for peaceful purposes. The two Koreas remain technically at war. Well, I'm not going to go into all their history and mama drama, but, yeah. So they're getting that kicked up and going. Probably shouldn't be surprised. And I'm just completely at a loss how this could ever possibly be. NATO budget surges by over a quarter. They don't mean 25 cents. NATO member states have agreed to increase the alliance's budget for 2023 by over 25%, the military bloc announced on Wednesday. The U.S.-led alliance justified the move by referring the ongoing conflict between Moscow and Kiev. The decision was motivated by the degraded security environment caused by the Ukraine crisis, according to the military bloc statement. I strongly welcome the agreement of NATO's civil and military budgets for 2023, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said, asserting that only North America and Europe, working together in a strong NATO, can keep our 1 billion people safe in a more dangerous world. That sounds convincing. The civil budget has been set to 370.8 billion euros, or $396.1 million, while the military spending is set to reach 1.96 billion euros. The figures constitute a sharp increase compared to 2022, up by 27.8% and 25.8% respectively. The budgets represent the spending of the organization itself, with the civil part covering funds for personnel, operating costs and program expenditures of NATO's headquarters and its international staff. The military budget is meant to cover the cost of NATO command structure headquarters, missions, and operations around the world. The third commonly funded element, the NATO Security Investment Program, which covers construction costs as well as command and control systems investments, has also received a boost. The NSIP cap has been set to €1 billion, representing a 26.6% increase. The sharp uptick in spending for the bloc's jointly funded activities comes as multiple member states have pledged to spend more on defense individually, citing the need to replenish weapon stockpiles which have been thinned out by continuous support for Kiev. They have also claimed the need to boost their capabilities in the face of alleged Russian threat. The U.S. alone has approved a record-breaking budget of some $848 billion, with some $800 million specifically allocated to aid Ukraine. Russia has repeatedly raised concerns over the ever-growing NATO bloc, the eastward expansion of which has been openly named by Moscow as a prime threat to its security. NATO expansion remains the main driver for the West in relations not only with Russia, the post-Soviet countries, and the former Warsaw Pact nations, which are already almost all absorbed by the alliance, but also, in general, in relations with other regions of the world, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said last week. So, I'm telling you, I don't see anybody backing up. And again, I don't buy what's happening. I don't believe it. I think it's rumors of wars. That doesn't mean that they won't go bombing each other. Doesn't mean that at all. I think behind closed doors, they're working together. Just my opinion. Either way, puts us in the same boat. We need to do the same things to be able to properly respond. So I try not to let my mind wander too far away from staying focused on preparation. Anyway, let me do some headlines, and yeah, we're going to make it a nice, easy, quick night. That works. I'm a little tired. All right. Jack Dorsey responds to Twitter files. White House snubs question on donations from FTX founder. Imagine that. Millions of... I covered that one. China reaps profits from record LNG I can't say it. China reaps profits from record LNG tanker orders, says Reuters. A Lockerbie suspect was abducted transferred to U.S., says media. Now, see, I've got no excuse for not being able to read. A German army not meeting NATO obligations, says media. Bipartisan bill seeks TikTok ban in the U.S. EU and UK load up on Russian diesel ahead of embargo, says Bloomberg. And send me about 500 gallons of it. Trump sues Pulitzer Prize Board, says Fox News. UK training Ukrainian judges for trials of Russians. Government offices in Kiev hit by drones, says officials. Facebook accused of amplifying hate speech in Africa. U.S. to blacklist more Chinese firms, says Bloomberg. World's largest cement maker leaving Russia. Voters don't want Biden, says a poll. What was your first clue? Captain Obvious. No consensus in EU over Ukraine tribunal, says top diplomat. Ex-president sued over official's death. Inflation in Finland hits 40-year high. I covered that. Elon Musk apologizes to Norway. I think it was Nigeria or something he said that they were, members of or head of. Civilian death toll from Ukrainian attacks on Donbass revealed. Kosovo applies for EU membership. Macron's party headquarters raided by investigators, says media. Governor of U.S. state commutes all death sentences. Any guess? Anybody guess what state? Which governor? You might get it wrong. You might not. Kate Brown, governor of Oregon. Kate Brown. The same one that was, behind orders that wound up with Robert Lavoie Finicum no longer being with us. That Kate Brown. That Kate Brown. That one. I actually did a report on that. EU looks to freeze RT parent company assets, says media. Russia-led trade bloc will soon stop using dollar, says Lavrov. Austrian energy exec sheds light on Russian gas imports. Kosovo seizes Serb municipality, says Belgrade. Covered that. Alleged coup plotters plan to kill German chancellor, says New York Times. China pulls diplomats after riot, says UK. Did a report on that. Scholes offers excuses for his own failures, says Moscow. Musk's Twitter suspends the account tracking his flights after saying he wouldn't. I'd add that in there. NATO budget surges by over a quarter. Erdogan rival convicted over insulting speech. How do you like that? Indians face years-long wait for U.S. visas. U.S. struggles to keep Africa in anti-Russia crusade, says media. And lastly, Germany is now total dictatorship, says Dutch journalist to RT. And that would be the headlines. Fun times. Anyway, I am going to get out of here. I am going to click public on that video. And I hope you enjoy it. And God willing, we'll see you tomorrow night. I'm sure there'll be a whole long line of crap again tomorrow. So. Good night, Hexafoods. Yeah, she's awake. She's been sitting here. She's awake. She's actually typing away right now. So anyway, I am off like a prom dress. I hope you all have a good night. God bless you. We love you. Be one with your spirit. And shalom.